So apparently, a man in politics by the name of Joe Kent apparently is the man of the hour now. Everyone's talking about him. He's on every news station. He's been elevated even to being on Tucker Carlson's show again. It's always a red flag to me when someone who is a low profile, relatively obscure person is all of a sudden just elevated for something as trivial as having a difference of opinion when we're supposed to have a diversity of ideas inside of any administration. Now, magically, he is the superhero of fighting against MAGA, apparently, because he's anti-war. Last time I checked, all of us in MAGA were anti-war. But when I start seeing people on the left and the right are now calling him an anti-Semite white supremacist, that's already a red flag. That it just stands out to me because they say that about everyone who is not a part of the uniparty. MAGA is not Republican. MAGA is not Democrat. MAGA is outside of the uniparty. We're a completely separate group. We're nationalists. And there is nothing that's going to benefit our nation by continuing these foreign wars and these foreign entanglements. Excuse me. Obviously, even though I am America first, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm anti-war unless it comes down to defending our borders. Was Iran threatening to invade the United States? No. Were they threatening to attack us? No. But were we threatening to attack them for 20 years plus? Yes. Are we surrounding them? We did. Are we losing the war? Yes. Have we lost this war? Absolutely. This war was lost within 3 days because if Iran was able to survive one day of a joint military onslaught from the United States and Israel, then they won. All they had to do was survive, and they've done way more than that. The next video I'm going to do is about the military base, Al Udeid. 60 of our F-35 bomber jets, our LNG pipelines, everything has been destroyed in Qatar from an Iranian attack 2 nights ago that no one's going to tell you about, but I'll bring it to you. I'll bring you the news and I'll talk to you about it. But anyway, I want to hear what Joe Kent has to say. I've heard a couple of snippets. I want to hear his thoughts, but I just can't believe that this man is so, why aren't there more Joe Kents? How is everybody on board with bullshit that we apparently were tired of? It just shows you that there's a huge, massive disconnect between the people we elect to represent us and the people that are being represented. They're literally not following our demands or what we want. They're going in their own separate direction. And this whole being slaves to Israel, we were all celebrating that Netanyahu had met his demise, but now they put one of his body doubles. And now that we think about it, we don't even know which body double this is because we don't know how many times Netanyahu has been deleted. And then they brought another double. So this could be double number 4, double number 8. We don't know. They don't tell us anything. They lie about everything. And we're beholden to them. And we thought America would eventually be free from the grasp of Israel. But now it seems like they're putting us back into a headlock. They resurfaced with a body double of Netanyahu that's alive and well. Obviously, it's not the same guy, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to hear what Joe Kent has to say about Iran, Charlie Kirk, because the jury's out on if Kirk is even still alive or not. And with all the cloak and dagger and all the muddy waters around what happened to him, how it happened to him, and why you're not allowed to investigate him. I'm not even saying that they don't want you to investigate what happened to Charlie because of Israel's involvement. I don't think they want you to investigate Charlie because of the special effects that were involved and the people that were in the audience. There's a gag order on the audience, so we don't even know if what we saw on the video with all the fluid squirting out, I'm not even sure if the audience that was there in person, if they saw the same thing. I just think they heard a clap and saw Charlie shaking like he was being electrocuted. Everything else could have been edited out or edited in. But let's talk to Joe for a second. I want to hear what he has to say.
I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. How did you reach that conclusion?
I think this is key. I mean, this would be more challenging to explain had the Secretary of State, the President, and the Speaker of the House not come out and said that we conducted this attack at this time because the Israelis were about to do so. So that takes away the argument that there was an imminent threat, as in Iran was planning to attack us immediately. That just simply did not exist.
May I ask you to pause? And so I've heard people say that, and this just happened, but history has a way of getting rewritten in real time. And then you look back 10 or 15, 20, 25 years later, and no one seems to understand the things that you saw because they've been eliminated. So I think it's important to stop and say, here's what we actually know. So I'd like now, if we could, just to play one of the statements that you alluded to, and that's from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And this was shortly after this war commenced. And he was explaining as is his habit, in a thoughtful, precise way, why. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't.
Well, apparently we're not good at what we think we are, because we attacked them first, and now we're the one on the ropes. There's being reported of hundreds of American casualties, American soldiers, and they're being classified for the time being as having brain damage. But that's code word for people that are deceased. Excuse me. And they're flying them out of the combat zone into other countries, so that way they can delay having to associate those deaths with the attacks from Iran. This is not a secret. We attack everyone on behalf of Israel. Do you not remember what happened on 9/11? It was Netanyahu that told us it was Osama bin Laden. That was Israeli intelligence was telling us that. But also they're the ones who instructed us that Saddam Hussein had the weapons of mass destruction. I was surprised when I watched the videos and I seen a younger Netanyahu, not sure which body double that was or if he was the original, literally telling us Saddam Hussein was going to develop nuclear bombs to use against us. He also said Gaddafi had chemical weapons. He said the same thing about Assad in Syria. So we've always been at war in the Middle East on behalf of Israel. We're hoping that that's going to stop now. There's too much pushback. It's extremely unpopular. And in 10 years, because of the next generation that's coming, there will be zero support for Zionism or Israel even to exist. There will be no support for it. So we will not be defending it. That support is gone now. I mean, I wouldn't even give it another 5 years before a lot of these politicians who are supporting Israel will be primaried out. This war between the globalists and the Zionists is over. The globalists have won. And I'm not saying the globalist agenda for us is any better than the Zionist agenda for the Americans, but in a way, we're swapping out the evil we know for the evil that we don't. But I mean, I guess we're going to just have to take this one battle at a time. But again, I don't think Joe Kent is wrong. I just think that his speech is unpopular because apparently they want you to just be a follower. Everyone's supposed to recite and say the same thing. And that's a problem because we all should have a separate opinion. And we all should be able to look at something and say, okay, this does not serve our needs. This is no secret that this was on behalf of Israel. So I don't know why everybody's playing dumb.
Okay, so that is his almost contemporaneous explanation, and it's not offhand. He reasons it out. He explains there's a logic chain there, and he says, we knew not that Iran was going to attack. He did not say that.
Right.
He said we knew that Israel was going to attack Iran, and in retaliation for those attacks by Israel against Iran, Iran might attack American forces. So the imminent threat that the Secretary of State is describing is not from Iran, it's from Israel.
Exactly. And I think this speaks to the broader issue. Who is in charge of our policy in the Middle East? Who is in charge of when we decide to go to war or not? In this case, with what the Secretary described, and later on the President, later on the Speaker of the House, and the way the events played out, the Israelis drove the decision to take this action, which we knew would set off a series of events.
And again, this is what they would consider unpopular speech. This is the speech they want to censor. The fact is, we are attacking Iran because Israel was going to attack them already. So it's not because Iran was threatening us. It's because Israel was going to attack Iran. So we had no choice. If that's not a foreign entanglement, then what is? It's not healthy for us, and it makes no sense. And unfortunately, our president, when it comes to Israel, just like Charlie Kirk was until right before he died, and just like all the rest of these people in politics, they could be extremely intelligent and morally sound, but when it comes to the subject of Israel or Netanyahu or the Zionists, they turn full retard. Their brain turns off. It's the weirdest blind spot I've ever seen in my life. But I guess money will do that to you. If someone's paying you to ignore something and that topic comes up, if that's your job because you're being paid to do it, you're going to ignore it. But at what expense? We're losing our sovereignty. We're losing American lives. We're being embarrassed. And now the world is starting to see that we're not able to protect people in the Middle East, and that our military is not strong enough to actually handle another organized country who has a standing military that's capable. We can handle militia. We might be able to handle the cartels. We could handle Saddam and his goons. We can probably kidnap a president out of Venezuela, but another actual prepared military of a superpower with millions of people, we're screwed. And honestly, Trump's got to find an off-ramp. We can't afford this war at all, but we lost. No matter if we get out today or next week, it doesn't matter. The embarrassment is still there, but the longer we're in there, the weaker we're going to look. And now we just exposed our hand, and it wasn't worth it. All to serve Israel? I'm an American. I don't want to have to serve another country, and I don't want another country being in control of my politicians where it's so blatantly obvious that they want to make it illegal and call you an anti-Semite for pointing it out. You want to curtail my American free speech, even if it's on college campuses only, where I cannot speak about Israel, but I can speak about every other country, every other people, but not Jews and Israel. That's not going to work for me. And it's not going to work for the rest of us here in this country. And if we got to primary everybody out who is pro-Israel, so be it. Because what good are they to the Americans? Go run for office in fucking Tel Aviv.
Meaning the Iranians would retaliate. Now, I think there's a potential there where we could have done several different things. We could have simply said to the Israelis, no, you will not. And if you do, then we will take something away from you. I think that it's fine that we offer defense to Israel. But when we're providing the means for their defense, we get to dictate the terms of when they go on the offensive. Otherwise, they stand to lose that relationship. And the Israelis felt emboldened that no matter what they did, no matter what situation they put us in, that they could go ahead and take this action, and we would just have to react.
And they were right. They were absolutely right. They were not wrong. They weren't assuming or guessing. That means they have complete control over the American arsenal. And I don't give a damn how many times you might deny it. What do the results say? You know how many people tell me, oh yeah, I don't do this, but then they say one thing and they do another. I don't want to hear the lip service. What do your actions say? Our actions say we do whatever the hell Israel and Netanyahu tell us to do. Period, point blank, full stop. There's no negotiating. We have 30 years of case study where I can prove this. There is nothing to debate. You're saying one thing and doing another. That's a problem with me. The truth is the truth. Joe Kent is also right about this.
And so that speaks to that relationship. But also it just shows that there was a lobby pushing for us to go to war. I know we'll get into that later on in the statement. But we had a real potential, I think, knowing what we know of the Iranians and how they react, and in particular, how they react to President Trump's leadership. The Iranians, under President Trump's leadership, especially in his second term, They have shown that they take a very calculated approach to the escalation ladder. For instance, in the lead up to the 12-day war before Midnight Hammer, the Iranians didn't attack us. They were engaged in negotiations with us. When President Trump came back into office, they stopped their proxies who were attacking us under the Biden administration because they knew Biden was weak. They stopped their proxies from attacking us as well. So they knew President Trump was someone who wanted to negotiate, but more importantly, they knew that President Trump was not someone to mess with because.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, okay. Now this part, he kind of loses me. First things first, I don't like fake psychics. I don't like people that pretend they can read the minds of other people, but yet you couldn't read the mind of Trump. You can't read the mind of Yahoo. You don't know what we're about to do with anything else, but yet people in other countries who language you don't understand, who religion you're confused about, you're magically able to say what they were thinking. The Iranians are like these other countries in the world. They don't want war. They want to do business. They want to make money, and they want to let their society move forward in peace. They want to maintain their sovereignty. They don't want to live like the Americans, meaning they don't want to give up family. They don't want to give up children. They don't want a bunch of women as feminists destroying their country. They want to keep their theocracy where they're managed by their religion, their laws, their customs, their traditions. A lot of Western homosexuality has seeped into the minds of some of the young people, and they literally try to overthrow the government of Iran along with the West. They weren't strong enough, and all of those gay people in Iran were executed, and the remaining gay ones that just tried to, escape in Australia from the women's soccer team, they will also likely be executed as well they just returned yesterday. There has to be a consequence for mutiny. There has to be a consequence for traitors. You can't, just because you don't agree with their customs doesn't mean we have the right to go in there and bomb them until forever. That's not how this works. We don't own the world. Until we get that through our heads, we're going to continue to have a problem. So these countries, they're not that they're afraid of us. It's just that they're trying to figure out how to get along with us. They have a good relationship with us, or they did. It's Israel, that evil regime that wants to do this greater Israel project, and they have all these countries they want to overthrow. They bit off more than they can chew, but they're using our teeth, which is a problem. And so, yeah, that's one thing about Joe Kent I don't like. Don't pretend you understand the Iranians. You never even spoke to them. You've never talked to them. So let's say we don't know, but let's definitely not just assume we can read their minds, because you can't read anybody else's mind. Don't pretend you can read theirs.
He killed Qasem Soleimani. He killed Abu Mahdi Mohandas. He had defeated ISIS. They knew that President Trump was a man of action. He is militarily strong. And so they said, before we take an action, we need to make sure that it's calculated. So I think in this scenario, even if the Israelis told us we're going to strike on this date at
Wayne, you know what? I'll be honest with you. There's no such thing as hate speech. Speech is speech. Just because you hate it doesn't mean it's hate speech. Speech laws are put in place not to protect the speech that Wayne might enjoy hearing. It's to protect the speech that you might find abhorrent. But there's no such thing as hate speech. That is a dog whistle when you're trying to obfuscate the American First Amendment. Now, if you don't believe in the American First Amendment and you don't respect our Constitution, this isn't the country for you. There are other places you can live. There's the UK. They don't have any First Amendment protections. Neither do the Australians, the Canadians. Nowhere on earth are you going to be able to have the freedom of speech. If you want to live in a country that lives under hate speech laws and guidelines, you have 194 to choose from. But the United States would not make a good home for someone who doesn't believe in free speech. Free speech includes hate speech. Free speech demands hate speech. It's the speech that's hate. Whatever speech that you might hate hearing is the one that needs protecting, not the speech that you enjoy and that you can sleep at night when someone's talking to you and saying a bunch of sweet nothings in your ear. It's the stuff you don't like. And that goes for Israel and anti-Israel and anti-Zionism. That goes for that speech as well. Just because you hate it doesn't mean it's hateful. But even hateful speech is protected by free speech, as it should be. I hope we could have an understanding about that.
this time, and we didn't, try to negotiate with the Israelis and say, hey, we'll take something away from them, I think we still could have back-channeled to the Iranians and said, hey, if something happens here in the next couple of days, it's not us. We're still serious about negotiations, and we don't want to escalate this, because it's well known what the Iranians' plans were. We knew that they were going to hit potentially our bases in the region, potentially our allies. We knew about the Straits of Hormuz. All of these things, I think, were fairly well known.
And the Houthis' ability to close the Red Sea, which is not yet done, but which would be catastrophic to the world.
Everybody knows somebody who has had an unexpected tragedy.
And they basically hit a part of a base in Qatar that they knew we didn't have any troops on.
Yes.
They didn't want to escalate any further than we were willing to go. But also the Iranians, when they pose a threat to us, they usually do it with their proxies. And if their proxies stick their heads up and their proxies come after us, this is basically the Trump doctrine. We hammer them, and we hammer their high-profile leaders.
Now, when they say proxies, they're referring to the Houthis of Yemen, who have been at war with Saudi Arabia, but also they were successfully attacking American and Western ships in the Red Sea, off their coast, especially. So what they're assuming is that the Houthis are solely being supported by Iran. They don't want to consider is that just like in the United States, you have your official government, then you have the people, and there's a disconnect. The people are supporting the Houthis because the Houthis are basically fighting on behalf of Islam and of the Holy Land. These elected officials are basically just in the pockets of the Americans and the Israelis. So they don't really count. It's not Iran that's necessarily hiring these people. These people are fighting on behalf of their Islamic world that we've invaded. It's self-defense, and I'm a strong believer in that anyone and everyone has the right to defend themselves. Us being 5,000 miles away with our military forces is the opposite of self-defense. We are the aggressors, and we've lost. This war was over before it even began. We just assumed that we were going to just, steamroll them because we steamrolled others who were weaker. The thing is, we've always been very careful to pick our battles, but we started to smell ourselves a little bit too much, and we're not being realistic about our military capabilities anymore. Since the vaccine mandate, a lot of our good patriotic soldiers left the military. The only ones that remained were Marxists and communists, a lot of gays, a lot of black kids who hate the country. They're just in the military to get a check. They're not there because they're patriots. You have a higher chance of getting friendly fire from these people turning on each other than you do of them actually successfully attempting a ground invasion of another country, working together. They don't like America. They're using America. So you got to understand, we don't really even have a ground force anymore. We have air superiority. Maybe we're getting our ships are being shot down. We just lost 60 ships at an air base in Qatar. So we're losing that capability as well. We are not who we think we are. And these other nations are watching us expose ourselves, which is not a good thing, because the only things that are really protecting us are the Pacific and the Atlantic. No one really has a desire to invade us because for what? Our cities are already destroyed. They've literally used fifth generational warfare to mentally destroy our country. We have no children anymore. We're no longer getting married. Everyone's on drugs. Everyone's gay. Everyone's confused. There's no reason to invade any of these places in the United States. There's nothing that anyone wants here. The best they can do is kind of disable our ability to, commit attacks like we're doing right now. So it doesn't make any sense to give too much credence to that, because that's not necessarily a problem.
Qasem Soleimani was highly effective and highly revered in Iran because the previous presidents, prior to President Trump, Obama, and Bush, let Qasem Soleimani run around, raise proxy armies, kill Americans, and no one ever did anything to him. President Trump rightfully killed Qasem Soleimani. We got his deputy, Abu Mahdi Mohandas, who had American blood in his hands, took them off the battlefield. But then President Trump stopped.
And we're still getting our asses kicked to this day. So what was the purpose of killing these men? We're still at war. You know what's crazy? The French, there was a French assassin that spoke months ago, and he was talking about a war that was going to start in February, March. This is the war that they thought Candace Owens was going to create a lot of problems when it came to selling this to the public. And they were right, because now we're all questioning everything. And none of this adds up. It doesn't hold water, doesn't make sense at all.
He took those two key players off the battlefield, and he said, I'm not going to further escalate with Iran unless you escalate with us, knowing that if we struck Iran and we truly struck the regime, that would only strengthen the regime. So then President Trump did something that's incredibly smart, used that decisive military action, but then he coupled it with an economic package of sanctions, maximum pressure sanctions. And we can debate whether or not we should be using sanctions as the prime reserve currency holder or whatever, but he pressured the Iranians economically after punching them in the mouth and showing that, hey, I won't take this. I'm not Obama. I'm not Bush. If you cross a line, I will come after you.
Wilbert, you're absolutely right. You know, it's crazy. I mean, Trump, he's, you know what? He's a great he's a great president if you're a nationalist. Him with the deportations, the fact that we were somewhat heavy-handed at first with deportations, it spooked a lot of illegals to self-deport. Millions of people have already left. Millions of people are being deported. Our rents are going down in the cities where we have the highest deportations. We are doing good on a national scale. However, he's completely screwed up when it comes to geopolitics. Today, he called the rest of our NATO allies, or whatever you want to call these dependents of ours in NATO, he called them all cowards because they wouldn't join a suicide mission in the Strait of Hormuz. So if I don't want to sacrifice my own life and the treasure of my country by sacrificing our ships and our equipment and the blood of our soldiers, because I have a sense of self-preservation and I'm not just a suicidal, what is it called? A Saki, like one of those kamikaze bombers from Japan. Because I'm not suicidal with my people in my country, that makes me a coward. Well, then so be it. At least we will be alive. You know, this is not 100 years ago where life was cheap and there was nothing to do. Bro, you have tons of stuff on the internet. There's all kind of cool stuff to buy. No one wants to die. People want to work and do business. You can't do that if you're dead, but also if you're at war. War is bad for business. If you're a military, if you're an arms dealer, if you're a private contractor in a military industrial complex, war is good for you. But we are not we're not a country with a war economy where there are millions of people employed because every day they're building bombs. That's in Russia. The Russians have an economy that is on a war footing, and they've been working on, they've been building this up for years. We don't have that kind of economy, so it's not good for us. We're trying to figure out a way to export our technology, our services. We are trying to find ways to bring people together. These wars are ripping us apart. That's a huge problem. So yeah, Iran they've already kicked our ass and nobody else wants to get their ass kicked jumping in with us. We don't have much more time. We got another maybe a week and a half before Trump's going to find a great excuse or something. He's going to have, I'll be honest, in my opinion, he's going to have to pay the Iranians to stop. They're going to have to pay them. We're not going to be able to bomb them so that they incapacitate them. They are not Iraq. They are not Libya. They are not Syria. This is Persia. They were around before any of the other players on the board. They're not going anywhere. We're going to have to get out of this as soon as we can, but we're going to be embarrassed. And this is another L. I mean, hopefully it doesn't get as bad as Vietnam, but we lost nonetheless.
But then he really put the pressure on them economically. If you look at the effect of the economic sanctions, that's what got the Iranian people on the streets actually protesting against the Ayatollah's government, which is ostensibly what we would like. We would like to see a bottom-up regime change where we get rid of the Ayatollah, but it's the will of the people, and they have a new successful government that's stable that we can deal with.
The Ayatollah is the equivalent to the Pope. Have you ever heard of another country talking about we need to get rid of their pope and that's going to rally the people against their government? It's a dumbass idea. That is their religious figure, and it is a theocracy. That means it's a country whose government is based on their religion. You know, the kind of country that men in America wish we had, where we could actually, because think about it, whenever it comes time for you to have kids or get married, that's all of a sudden when you want to grab a Bible. That's when you want your wife to behave a certain way and you want to raise your children a certain way. It's all smoke. It's all fun and games until the woman you're sleeping with is pregnant and you don't want anyone else sleeping with her. And you want to have access to your children so you can raise them a certain way so that they can grow up and be healthy and functional. Then you want to lean on religion. Then you want to take your family to church. Imagine a society where that's built into the framework of the people. Mentally, they're already there. That means the most to them. You know, fear of God is what helps guide humans into making better decisions. People behave a certain way in their current life so that they're not punished in the afterlife. It's a thing that us humans do. That's where religion comes in. It kind of just teaches you how to handle certain situations and deal with other humans who we have to cohabitate with. We wish we had a theocracy. The women here in the West are now complaining, saying the men should have never gave us sexual liberation and freedom because now we have no children. We did porn for 20 years and now no one will marry us and we're getting old. They're blaming men for how society turned out because we listened to them and gave them what they want. Iran is not giving women what they want. We think they should, but yet over here, women are wishing they could put the genie back in the bottle. They don't want to live like us. They don't have to live like us. And we cannot promote thinking that we can kill one of their religious figures and it's going to help overthrow their. Why would you want to overthrow their government? We overthrew the government in Libya. How'd that turn out for the people? Or is anybody safer or better off? Not at all. How's Afghanistan today? Or matter of fact, tell me about Baghdad. I want to hear all the, is there an In-N-Out somewhere in Baghdad? Or is there a Wendy's? No, none of it panned out. We're horrible at regime change, nation building. We don't have the track record that shows we know what we're doing. That's why we have to stay out of it. All of this foreign entanglement over in of deciding who to kill for this outcome, it's failed. It's all failed and it has to stop. And I'm glad that somebody like Kent is talking about it. Not that he's a well-known figure, but he gives people like me content so I can talk to my audience and we can decide whether we agree with him or not. A lot of people, and do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. It pushes me into the algorithm. Also, you can hit the bell. If you don't mind, I know we're on 8 platforms. Come to YouTube, Rico Limbaugh on YouTube. That way you can keep up with me and we can figure this out together. Because we all, for the most part, a lot of us are Americans. We have to figure out what we are going to do next based on the decisions of these idiot politicians who we thought were going to represent our will, but instead they're representing other countries. We're going to have to change that. And if Trump doesn't get his shit together, I'm not going to be able to support him. But Trump is not MAGA. Make America Great Again is not Trump. America and Trump are two different things. I'm focused on my country. I'm focused on my people. I'm focused on tomorrow. The presidents are going to come and go. Like I said, when it comes to national issues, Trump is great. He's bad with diplomacy. He's insulting to these foreign leaders. And I don't know. It seems like he was doing good at first, but a lot of the progress is already sliding. So Trump's going to have to get it together or we're going to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Because, I'm not going to go to the left. I'm not going to start supporting child mutilation and decriminalizing the consequences for pedophiles like a Democrat did. Senate Bill 145 in California. We're not that upset, but we don't like how things are going, but we're not that mad that we're going to start supporting child mutilation. That's not what we're going to do.
The one way to throw that all out the window, and this isn't just Joe Kent's opinion, many scholars, and I think a lot of intelligence assessments have been written about this too. I know for a fact they have, is that if we struck the regime, it would only strengthen it. And that's not, I think that's just basic common sense. I mean, I think of myself, and probably you're in this camp as well. We didn't like Joe Biden. We didn't like Barack Obama. But if an outside force were to come in here and try and topple them while they were the president, I would 100% rally around the flag. That's just common sense. So if we wanted to strengthen,
you actually did. You joined the military under Bill Clinton,
Under Clinton.
whom I assume you didn't vote for.
Right.
Right. You joined in 1998. You've gone the whole cycle of the war on terror, I noticed, and served out as an NCO. I think your entire
NCO and warrant officer.
and warrant officer 20 years. And I should just say, I hate ever to refer to him.
You know what? Maybe that should be a requirement for our politicians going forward. They've done some kind of civil service. They've been in the military. They understand structure. They understand politics. They understand geopolitics. It seems like the only people in politics that have been morally grounded and kind of America first were those who had previously served before running for office. I'm starting to notice a pattern. I'm starting to see a pattern. So I think that's something we're going to have to talk about in another video after this.
Man's resume as like a data point because your ideas exist separately. But in this specific case, meaning you spend most of your time fighting Iranian proxies.
Yeah, a good deal of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're aware of the threat from Iran. You have personally used violence against that threat.
I have.
Yeah. A lot of it, I think. And you supported the president's policy up until fairly recently.
Right.
And you've said that a lot in public. In fact, you went to work for him. He hired you.
Yeah.
Right. But here's from what I can tell, is the central question: imminent threat. Now, the president has said many times to many people, including the public, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he must have said that to you. You don't have to say it, but he said it to everybody. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't like that. For one thing, in my personal and professional opinion, there are no nukes. They don't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. And the certain countries that have other treaties that would never invade each other anyway, they use the threat of nukes as their excuse for not invading each other, but they have other treaties, and that's why they're not going to invade each other. But it seems like the only countries that are never being invaded by the U.S. are countries that are nuclear armed, like North Korea. That little guy up there is still talking big shit and testing weapons, and no one's even considering invading him because why? He's playing the nuke game. If Iran said that the Russians had sold them some nukes, this war wouldn't be happening right now. So honestly, I think everyone should pretend that they have nuclear missiles, and that'll maybe keep everyone at bay. Because you know what they say, a armed society is a polite society, and this is we're a world society right now. The world's getting a lot smaller, so because of that, everybody should say they have them just to keep others within their own goddamn borders.
They can't have a nuke. Whenever asked, we say, let's just start here. They can't have a nuke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Everyone agreed with that conceptually. Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No,
You know what, Rob? That's the truth. And you don't know what they have either. So it's just as ignorant to assume they don't have nukes as it is to assume that they do, because we don't know. So what you're saying, the argument can go both ways. You don't know, I don't know, but we don't know. But it can go either way.
They weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region.
I mean, listen, people want to argue me about the nukes in other chats. I'll put it like this. If nukes existed, those maniacs over in Tel Aviv would have used one on Iran on day 2. You think Israel and those arrogant Zionists, you think they would let their cities be turned to rubble? Iran's going to hit their desalination plants. You know what that means? that means there will no longer be Palestine. Okay, this is what that means. If Iran hits those 5 desalination plants in Israel, that means Palestine will be free because there will be no more Israelis living there because there will not be any water. And there won't be any water for years. They get their water from the ocean and they have to remove the salt to drink it. It's like 99% of their water comes from there. They don't have underground lakes like we do here in America. They have to get their water from the ocean, purified from the Mediterranean, and that's not happening. So there will not be an Israeli state anymore if those desalination plants are hit. Their population is too large, and their cities are already being turned to dust. The Iranians are not letting up. They would have already hit Iran with a nuke if they had them. They would have hit Iran 20 years ago with a nuke if they had them. They only have nukes for Iran. Let them tell it. If you're not going to hit Iran with a nuke, who was Israel planning on using the nukes on? You might as well not even have them because there's nothing to have. You know, all those movies we've seen years ago, a lot of that was just make believe. It wasn't real. We didn't even use there was no atom bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They used the same type of firebomb that they used in Dresden, Germany. The firebomb they're so powerful because the fire needs oxygen. So most people don't even burn up from the heat. They literally suffocate to death. So that's, you know, you don't really need a nuclear bomb. And we believe in these fantasies, but it's not a real thing. It's not.
And their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was, executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Sodomized by a bayonet. Right. Okay. So that's that's the lesson I think that the entire region took from that when Hillary Clinton.
Unfortunately, that's what the neoliberal warmongers. That's the lesson that they showed everyone in the region. And then conversely, the Iranians also knew that if they came out and said, "Okay, we've got a nuke," whether they were bluffing or not, Saddam Hussein. Iraq right next door. So they kind of had this.
Hung, I think.
He was hung by his own people, after a bloody, war that's still essentially going on.
Hung by his own people. His own people that were being paid and inspired by the West to turn against him. They hung Saddam. So now do you understand why the Iranians have to execute the students and the soccer team and the wrestler? Because if you don't, then they'll execute you. And then what are your kids going to do when Iran is destroyed? No more theocracy, the destruction of the religious framework, the destruction of morality, no more families, no more children, no more marriages. Well, then they're just like us. Is that what the Iranian people want? Absolutely not. Now you understand, if those people were not executed, then what happened to Saddam in his own country by his own people and vice versa with Gaddafi would have happened to the clerics and those in charge of Iran. Iran was just a lot stronger and the people are just more dedicated than the people in these other countries. They weren't able to pull it off. But now you can understand, because people were, yesterday I got a lot of pushback when I was saying that those women from the Iranian soccer team were traitors. I did a whole video about it and I explained my reasoning for saying that. And then you look at their still pictures, right? They cut their hair. They all want to look like Ellen DeGeneres. A lot of them want to be lesbians. They want to be gay. They want to walk around topless in Tehran and get on OnlyFans and pose nude on Instagram, but their government is stopping them. So it's like, it's insane that they want to be gay like the West so bad that they're willing to topple Persia, which has stood for 2,000 plus years. It just shows you how self-centered and selfish these women who don't want to be wives and don't want to be mothers because they want to be gay. It just shows you their priorities are not the future of their country and their families because, well, they don't have families. That's why the hand must be heavy and justice must be swift, or you will lose the stability of your country and then where are your kids going to live? Now I have to ask myself that question here in the United States. Why do you think I make videos now? Why do you think I have these conversations? I don't want to let things get too out of control. I'd rather help be in control of the situation. You got to think of the bigger picture. You know, if when you're a man, your goal is to make sure that your kids have a stable environment to grow up with. There's nothing more unstable than people in your country trying to overthrow your goddamn government. So keep that in mind. That's why those people had to be executed. Let's just might as well just say it.
Inside of Iraq. So the Iranians' position, when viewed from the lens of the region, was actually fairly pragmatic. They were preventing,
Denise, there was no atom bomb. There was not even two of them. If there were, then the radioactive isotopes would have rendered the soil infertile for 20 plus years. The women would have not had children. They wouldn't have been able to rebuild those cities in under 5 years, which both Hiroshima and Nagasaki were reconstructed in under 5 years. They never tell you that because they want you to believe this lie that an atomic bomb was dropped on those cities when it was not. It was just a really massively large firebomb, the same type that was dropped on Dresden, Germany. I'm versed in this. I know more about it than you. I've actually been to these places, so that's why I can say these things based on my own observations, and I've actually researched it. You're speaking from what you've heard from someone else, not because you actually looked it up yourself or even considered what I'm saying. So please look into it and think about it. I know as an American, we're not used to thinking. We're used to somebody telling us what to believe. But this is going to be a brand new exercise for you, okay? You're going to use that brain muscle and you're going to think for yourself.
Themselves from developing a bomb, but they still wanted the ability. They wanted the ability to enrich. They wanted the ability to have some components so that they weren't completely stripped of it. And when we always assessed that they were either several months or a year, 2 years away from actually being able to develop a nuclear weapon. And that's not because the Iranians are stupid people. I think we can tell right now that the Iranians are anything but stupid. They had the ability, I think, that the brain power to actually develop one, or they could have simply traded a ton of oil with Pakistan or someone else to actually get a nuclear weapon. They were not doing that. We had no intelligence to indicate that they were.
Then why was the president, was he told that they were on the brink of it? Why at the beginning of every conversation about Iran would the president say, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Why was that the central question when, and you would know since you were the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, why would he say that if there was no intelligence or evidence that they were actually developing a nuke?
So a couple of things. This is what I talk about in the letter about this ecosystem of information that's laundered through a lot of prominent neoconservative types that are very sympathetic to the Israeli cause, and then also Israeli government officials who give us things in semi-official channels. What they did was they created basically a shifting red line or a new red line. So if the president's red line was Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, we've actually got a lot of trade space in there for a deal to be made, because of what I just described with the Iranian policy. Essentially, the Iranians saying, okay, well, we don't want a nuclear weapon. Well, that means we basically are at a point where we can start negotiating and we can come up with a deal. And the president is a fantastic deal maker. So if your goal is to move us away from any kind of deal and your goal is to move us into a conflict, you have to shift that red line. And that's where a lot of this, I would say, what became a de facto U.S. policy of Iran can have no nuclear enrichment. It was laundered through a lot of the different talking heads, Mark Levin, Mark Dubowitz. You've got the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy.
You know, a lot of this we've already heard. I want to get to the juicy stuff about Charlie Kirk. Let me see. Let's see where that is. Give me a second. Let's see. It's fine.
You name it.
Well, there's been a lot of
from our intelligence just simply isn't true. And they'll say, hey, I'm giving you a preview. It's not in intelligence channels yet, but here's what's going to happen. Didn't see any of that.
I mean, that must have been such a weird experience for you. This time with the president as Israeli officials did?
I don't know. I don't know that for sure because I don't know exactly how frequently the Israelis were engaging directly with the president. It did, Ali Khamenei. However, he was moderating their nuclear program.
On the rest of the world, all of them disastrous. Then on the American side,
Trenched in this.
exactly,
And that's exactly what they're doing right now.
after. And
The Israelis told us that they wanted, this is the time using the media.
I mean, so you've already seen in the wake of a recent terror attack, neocons use that attack.
To be locked up.
Of course. Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. 5 years in Iraq, over 7 to.
As I was realizing that we were lied to get it, it's time to do something different.
Transparent about my motives, not in this to.
I believe that the internet is like 25% real. Then I think you have the echo chamber as well, because you in Iraq, which again led to.
It was clear that we were being pushed by the Netanyahu government into this war that they.
Public now, this is all out there in the open. And he's arrested, and then 2 days later.
Here we go.
Of all, and I don't know if you can answer it. I don't think I can answer it. But since all of these dynamics are very well known to everyone in Washington, everyone who pretends this is not real, the Tom Cottons of the world, Lindsey Grahams or whatever, the liars, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Pro-Israel people know, anti-Israel people know that what you're saying is true. I don't think there's any debate about any of it. So since it was clear that we were being pushed by the Netanyahu government into this war, that they were choosing the timing, they chose the timing, right? I mean,
Yeah, I'll take Marco Rubio's word for it.
I'll take Marco Rubio's word for it. Was it ever discussed, the option that you mentioned at the beginning? Like, how about no?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so then you have to ask, I'm just following the logic train here. What kind of pressure does it require to get a president who campaigned against exactly this thing for 10 years to do exactly this thing? What does it take to do that?
I wish I knew definitively. I think there's two potential.
Investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's their job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah State case, that back off nation attempt, there's Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get.
Okay, so this is the part that I wanted to talk about when I first saw it. This is the part that's scary. I'm starting to realize that the people that we have in government, they're not really in government. They're just there. Like, yeah, it's a game. We pretend that we're electing these people, right? But they're not even, once they're elected, they're still kept on the outside. It's kind of like when your older brother passes you a controller and tells you can play the game with them, but it's not plugged in. And you're just sitting there, he's saying that even him being in government, even he's kept out of the investigations and he's not a part of the know. That's crazy to me. Because I used to think, okay, once you get elected, they just open the doors, you get clearance. That's not the case. How is it that the guy who shot Trump from Butler is an enigma to this day? No one knows anything about Thomas Crooks at all. They said they couldn't access his devices. They couldn't access his social media. It's been years and we don't know anything about him. We know everything about Tyler Robinson, who they're saying allegedly killed Charlie Kirk, which nobody believes because no one's seen him do it. And it was broad daylight and he wasn't up there. He wasn't even at the scene. But how do we know more about the man who allegedly shot Charlie than we do the guy who tried to smack our president in Butler, Pennsylvania right before the election? It's insane to me. We know nothing about him. Nobody does. And you would have thought we've had a whole dossier by now. We don't have any information. This should scare everybody. We don't know what's going on around us. We think the adults are in charge. We think people who are smarter than us are in charge. We are wrong. We are making the wrong assumptions. They are not in charge. They have no idea what's going on. And what if Trump's just a layman like this guy and he doesn't even know what's going on? How is it that Thomas Crooks is still an enigma years later? Unbelievable.
into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media.
You know what? Can a farmer? Unfortunately, I think you're correct, and that scares the shit out of me, because we don't, like you just said, there are people who call themselves elites who think they're elevated above us. They're elite people, and we're just, what are we, the commoners? What are we, we're the villagers, and they're the ones in the castle, and we don't even know who they are. So here we are being controlled by people who we don't know. We don't know their interests. We don't know their goals, their plans. But yet they have a say so in our lives. That should be scary to all of us, because we don't know what they're going to do next. And if you don't know what's about to happen, how can you have stability? How can you feel comfortable about tomorrow? Or, I mean, it's way too much risk, in my opinion. But I think you're right, and that's a problem.
That's all well known. Your investigative journalist found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
Quite an
online
extensive
footprint.
one.
He was talking
Yeah.
to people. So
Yes.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this? I mean, if
An attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, Charlie Kirk was killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing.
Okay, my question is this. Let me ask my AI, let me ask my co-host. Excuse me, Arthur. How common is it for a civilian to be in the West Wing of the White House advising the president against or for or against wars in a scenario like that? How common is that for a civilian to ever be involved in such matters?
It's actually quite rare for a private civilian to be directly advising the president in the West Wing on matters of war. Typically, national security decisions involve high-ranking government officials like cabinet secretaries, military chiefs, and national security advisors. While external experts or advisors can provide input, they usually do so in formalized advisory capacities. A direct, informal role for a civilian would be highly unusual.
Okay, so you heard Joe Kent's interview. He said the last time he saw Charlie Kirk alive was in the West Wing, and he was advising Trump against a war in Iran around the 12-day war. What the hell, or who the hell was Charlie Kirk to be talking to Trump about such matters, and why is that not something that is a huge red flag for the public?
Charlie Kirk is known as a political commentator. From what is verifiable, Charlie Kirk is a political commentator and activist, not a government official or national security advisor. Claims that he directly advised a president on sensitive wartime decisions are not supported by credible evidence. If such a scenario were true, it would indeed raise major concerns about process and accountability. However, what Joe Kent says should be treated with skepticism until confirmed by reliable sources. In short, if such a scenario is not corroborated, it is likely a speculative or sensationalized claim. Always distinguish between confirmed fact and speculation.
Okay, let's say hypothetically Joe Kent is telling the truth, and this is a factual statement. Go from there. Tell me about what that would mean, who Charlie Kirk must be if he's in that space and what Joe Kent is saying is true. Talk to me.
If we assume that scenario is true, it would imply that Charlie Kirk had an extraordinary informal level of influence far beyond public knowledge. It would mean he wasn't just a commentator, but a trusted, confidential advisor in matters of national security, operating in sensitive policy discussions with the president. That would raise questions about what unofficial channels of influence exist who else might wield that kind of access, and whether formal processes were bypassed. Essentially, it would point to a breakdown in standard policy-making structures.
So I'm not crazy, because when I'm hearing Joe Kent say this, everyone's so hung up on the fact that he said, yeah, Charlie told him to stop the war. My question was, why was Charlie Kirk even there? Who is Charlie Kirk to be giving advice to the president? Was Charlie Kirk more important, or was there more to him than we knew? Because it seems like everybody around Charlie Kirk was military, except for him. They're all related to people who are in the military, active people. And it seems like Charlie Kirk was just the only oddball out who wasn't involved in this. I don't know if it's a conspiracy, whatever, but I'm starting to think down that maybe Charlie was more involved than we think. I think there's something else going on. Why in the hell was Charlie Kirk in the West Wing talking to the president of the United States about a 12-day war against Iran? He goes to college campuses and he fucking owns liberal kids and gays and blacks. He teaches them about themselves. Why are you in the West Wing? It just seems like there's just so much there was so much going on with Charlie Kirk. It's like, unless we have more information, it's hard for us to make heads or tails of what was really happening. But I know this. There's some stuff that's missing about Charlie. And even according to the AI, at least according to the when we're doing the questions right now to Arthur, he must be a higher ranking person who has some kind of affiliation with our government. He wasn't just a political commentator. Okay, so what was he? See, this is what I mean when I say I think Charlie is still alive. Because now, if you told me he was just a political commentator going to the schools and some random gay kid shot him, okay. But when you're a high-ranking American government official that's advising the president on war scenarios, I'm starting to think that maybe you were a little bit too valuable to get assassinated and you're somewhere else in an advisory capacity. I mean, there's just too many variables. There's too many questions. And then Joe Kent throws this at us. The last time he seen Charlie Kirk was in the West Wing advising the president. What the hell was Charlie Kirk doing there? What's going on? What is this? That's the least likeliest person that should have been in the West Wing talking to Trump about war. Was he there for a field trip? Was he there to do a tour of the White House? What the hell is he doing advising Trump on a war? But he's a civilian. You know, I have questions like, okay, Jeffrey Epstein was a civilian, but in 1993, he hired 1,000 scientists that used to work for Los Alamos military base. They were working on the Manhattan Project for the United States. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, they were out of work. Epstein was able to access these scientists and recruit them. As a civilian, he's not even in the government. It's like there's like something weird going on where everything is not the way it's supposed to be. Like that's not supposed to be able to happen. As a civilian, Charlie Kirk should not have been in the West Wing. Like that is very uncommon and weird. If anybody agrees, let me know. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you have questions just like me and you want answers and you're trying to figure this out just like me, follow me, talk to me. Let's figure this out together. It doesn't make sense. And no one's giving us an explanation, which I have a problem with. Let's listen to what Joe Kent says about this one more time. I want to hear this again.
Well, that's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalist found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
Quite an
online
extensive
footprint.
one.
He was talking
Yeah.
to people. So
Yes.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this?
Oh, hey, Stormy. Yeah, good to be back. I was in Mexico on vacation. I didn't go deep into Mexico. I just went Rocky Point for a friend's birthday. I needed to take a little break. But now I'm back and I'm gonna be here. And I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Stormy, for being here. And thank you, Edward. I do agree with you as well. This is crazy. But let's listen to what Joe Kent says. And this is the first time I think anyone's ever heard anyone publicly announce this about Charlie Kirk. Listen to what he says.
You know, I mean, if
An attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, you know, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk.
Okay, then maybe he wasn't executed publicly in a horrific way, because if he was, then what would be the harm in looking into it? There wouldn't be.
Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was.
You cannot be a civilian and a presidential advisor. I don't think that's how it works. You cannot be one of the most important presidential advisors, but from a civilian post where you have access. You're not even supposed to be in those meetings. There's a level of clearance that is required. You can't just bring somebody off the streets and divulge confidential information with them about our armed forces and our plans. That would seem like a breach of security. I'm sorry, that just doesn't make sense. That someone from a civilian capacity. I mean, what are we, Stargate SG-1, and you're this, and Charlie Kirk was Daniel, and you're working secretly with the press? Like, it's not adding up. How was Charlie Kirk, who is a political commentator who goes to college campuses, you know, I will be honest, I was this shocked when I found out Turning Point USA was getting $100 million a year. For what? They literally go to college campuses with signs, they pass out hats, and they talk to kids about not being gay. Like, what do you, why are you getting $100 million a year? I talk about that for free. I like talking about that for free. Why are you giving Charlie Kirk? I don't like, it's like there's a whole nother world that's layered on top of the real world, and the two don't mix. It's like water and vinegar. It's like it's not mixing. I don't know. There's something we're all missing here, and we're going to figure it out.
In the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space. And he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran." Very loud.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest.
So wait a minute. Trump wants war with Iran. Israel wants war with Iran. And they brought in a civilian that was going to be, what is it? Like an adversarial to them? They brought in somebody who disagrees with them. These are people that like echo chambers. These are people that like yes men. If Charlie didn't agree with the war and he wasn't helping them, then what was he there for? I'm pretty sure they know the American people don't want war. Why would you need Charlie Kirk there to tell you that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no benefit for us to attack Iran. And he specifically tells Joe Kent to stop us from getting in a war with Iran. Why is that just so convenient? I'm not saying Joe's, making this up or he's wrong. It's starting to play out like a movie or like on Hulu or something. Like, it's just, why is Charlie Kirk there? How is he there? I thought he lived in Arizona. Now you're in DC advising the president on not attacking Iran. Like, why are they asking you? You're Charlie Kirk. You're not a military strategist. I've never seen you kick anyone's ass. You're not a diplomat. You've never ran for any kind of office. You're CEO of Turning Point USA. What are you doing in the West Wing? Like, this is weird. And it's even more weird that no one caught this and was asking these questions. Why am I the only one in the YouTube space that's analyzing the fact that Charlie Kirk shouldn't have been there in the first place? So this gives more credence to when Jesse on Fire is saying, hey, I think Charlie's still alive, because people who are typically this important, they don't just die, publicly. That's not how it works. There's nothing new under the sun. If that was the case, you'd see those type of executions all the time. You really don't. You really don't. You got to go back 40, 50 years to see something like what happened to Charlie. So I don't know. I don't think Charlie's dead, because all this weird cover up of him, but they covered up the fact that he was in the West Wing too. It's like there's too many secrets coming out. There's too much stuff going on, and there's not enough transparency. I don't think he's dead. I just don't.
Advisors who is vocally advocating.
But that's just my opinion. He very well could be dead. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I have a lot of questions that are starting to make me doubt the fact that I can trust that official story. I don't trust any official stories. I literally watched an official story tell me a plane crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I literally can go to YouTube right now. Let's see here. Let's see here. Look, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I literally let people tell me a plane crashed right here, but there's no wreckage. There's just a hole in the ground and some smoke.
Today, there will be former on the eve of
Look.
this.
And I believe them. Look.
Washington to attack.
The same people who told me that Charlie Kirk died on video also told me that this was footage of a jumbo jet or whatever from 9/11 that crashed into a field. I don't see any engines. I don't see any wings. I don't see any seats. I don't see any fucking bags of peanuts. I looked at a hole in the ground that looks like it's just bad landscaping, and I let people convince me that this is where people where a plane crashed. So the same people that are trying to convince me that Charlie Kirk is dead are the same ones that are trying to convince everybody that this was the aftermath of a plane wreckage in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Do you see where I'm going with this?
For us to not go to war with Iran, and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
No, I don't think you are.
I mean, the thing is, if it's true and Tyler Robinson was a shooter, then Joe Kent investigating it could just add to the evidence against Tyler. Why would they be against confirming his guilt? All it would do all you're going to find is that this guy did it. So why would they not want more evidence? That way it's a slam dunk way beyond a reasonable doubt. And see, again, that doesn't make sense. Typically, more information is the goal, not less. You never see anybody trying to dial back how much information they have. They usually want it all. They want it all. So that's another weird, there's this it's like, I don't think that they don't want you to look into Charlie because you're going to find out that, more evidence that he's dead and that this guy shot him. I think they don't want you to look into it because you're going to find out that Charlie, he's the reason everybody was behaving weird that day and they weren't really trying to save his life was because his life wasn't, he wasn't about to die. He wasn't losing his life. So there was nothing to save. I mean, for Christ's sakes, when he was shot, not one of his security detail took off their glasses, their dark shades. Not one of them took off their glasses to get a better look at his injury. And a matter of fact, if you look at the video, if he was shot in the neck, they laid him down on the same side where basically all his fluid would pour out. Why wouldn't you have rolled him over where you would let whatever gravity keep the fluid in his neck and you would try to stop the bleeding? You wouldn't just pour out. You're just dumping out his blood. Like there's no. These are grown men. You mean to tell me it was amateur hour all of a sudden? These are people that were trained for medical training. They know how to keep someone alive, but they didn't even try. They didn't even take off their glasses to get a good look at the injury. Not one of them. Everybody involved in TPUSA had on black shades, and they kept them all on the whole time. What a weird thing to do. But I'm supposed to just believe that I shouldn't ask any questions, and that's just how people move. What are we in the Matrix? What are you, a bunch of agents? Just keep your shades on like that. We have to question everything nowadays. Everything.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk because it upset?
I'm a civilian. I wonder would Trump ever invite me into the West Wing to give him my opinion on the war? Or who else is he going to bring? Mike Tyson? Steve Harvey? Who's he going to bring in there to advise him? Like, why Charlie? Who is Charlie to give advice on war? He's not a diplomat. He's not even involved in any official channels. He only speaks English. So who was Charlie? What else was he up to? I know Erica is shady and she has a really distinctive history, and there's a lot of smoke around her identity and who she is and her role that she played in these foreign countries, all the Romanian angel stuff. There's a lot of dark stuff about Erica, but it's starting to seem like maybe there wasn't just an entire world built around Charlie, like he was Truman, and he just wasn't in on it. The guy was too damn smart. You mean he didn't pick up on anything all these years? He just didn't know nothing? And he's just basically the victim of circumstance? I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't think you're able to fool somebody as smart as him for that long. Short term, of course, but for years, and I don't know. I'm starting to doubt it. I'm having doubts.
It's me to hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand why you would ever turn down help in an investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's your job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say, that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah State case, that back off, they've got it. They've got a smoking case. They've got the fingerprints on the gun, and they've got the kid.
But the FBI was involved in the case.
The FBI was involved. The FBI's basically said that they're deferring to Utah because it's now a state case.
They've established a precedent for federal investigation of this crime.
Yeah, and the National Counterterrorism Center's mandate is to investigate any foreign ties, to see if there's potentially any foreign ties. If we don't find any foreign ties, we back off. What I'm saying, about getting into too much detail, is there was more for us to investigate.
You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder, and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. They basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. And look, I didn't even say necessarily that I believe there's 100% foreign ties. There were data points that we needed to investigate. I mean, I think anybody who's even, looked at any kind of police investigation, you get 100 leads, you run them down, and 99 don't mean anything. We still had a lot more leads to run down that pertained to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating.
It seems like he was digging a little too deep, and I'll be honest, he would have accidentally stumbled upon that Charlie is still around, and that this was actually a military operation to remove him from the scene and to fake his death. I mean, Now, just because I don't know exactly why they would do that doesn't mean there's not a good reason to do it. I mean, I'm not on the inside, and I'm sure if this is the case, if they explain it to me, I might say, okay, that makes sense. But as of right now, we just know that something weird happened and something weird is continuing to go on, and they don't want anyone investigating this. You'll be surprised how many people tell me, don't talk about this, don't bring this up. And I'm like, why? What don't you want more exposure? Don't you want to know the truth? I have a thing where I need to know what's happening. I want to know. I want to understand. And I guess some people don't have that innately in them. But me, I care to know. I need to know. And Tucker's right. Why would you not want more help if that's the truth? Then all you're going to find is more. All you're going to do is be able to confirm that that's true. Why would you not want the extra help? It seems like they're trying to cover up something, and it's not Charlie's death. The only other thing I can think of is that they're trying to cover up Charlie's life because he's not dead. But that, again, he could be, but it seems like they're trying to cover up more than just his death, because when someone dies, I mean, you can show their autopsy picture, where their grave is. He's not even buried anywhere. No one's asking these questions. No one cares. I'm like, I thought we all cared. Again, I live in this country. I want to see, I used to love watching Charlie debate and talk to these people about these different topics. It was inspiring. I didn't know so many people were mentally ill living around us that are literally going to be driving and creating policy, working. I had no idea how many people were mentally ill until Charlie put it out there on Front Street. So yeah, I'm heavily invested in the truth about what happened to him. Either way, I need to know. And it seems like there's definitely something being covered up, but it's something more than just him dying that's being covered up. It's not about who did it to him, but also if it even happened at all.
And,
that just strikes me as inconceivable that could happen. And again, I was aware of it from reading about it, but not really to the extent that you've just described. So I would love to hear the justification for that. And can you flesh that out a little bit more? What were you told was the reason to prevent you as a federal intelligence official running the National Counterterrorism Center from looking into the murder when you had reason to look into it?
Well, the way the bureaucracy works is they can just kill things in process. So initially we were cut off pretty early on from being able to access like the files and being able to, send people out there. We sent people out initially to work in the task force. After the crisis period, the first week or so, that dispersed, and we basically were told that, hey, we'll get back to you if we find any kind of foreign ties, et cetera, that we want you guys to look into. Meanwhile, we had already dug up a decent amount of leads. Again, I'm not saying that we had anything concrete, but we found more work that we needed to do to say that we had done our due diligence. We were then told that, hey, you guys need to stop. You can't work on this anymore. I had a bureaucratic dispute about it. Eventually, we were allowed to continue to investigate. But then in very short order, all the requests that we would make that normally different parts of the interagency with the FBI being on point would facilitate data share. Data sharing is a big thing that NCTC does. Those requests were just never met, or in my opinion, not an honest effort was given to fulfill those requests. Just basic information that any competent police service, which I believe Utah has, and the FBI, that they would have access to help us run down the leads to either confirm or deny some kind of foreign activity. So we were cut off from that. They didn't ever officially come back and say, you can't look at this anymore. All of the requests just continued to die on the vine with the various agencies that we needed to actually fulfill those requests.
I just can't imagine a legitimate justification for that. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but from a non-specialist perspective, something horrible has happened. The U.S. government its core function is to investigate crime, particularly murder. Here you have an agency whose job it is to run down the rabbit trails you've described, and you're stopped from doing that. We don't want the information.
Right.
Why would any person engaged in a legitimate pursuit say, I don't want more information?
I mean, especially considering there was people posting online prior knowledge of what was about to happen. So a lot of the justification for stopping us from investigating hung on, hey, we've got the guy, his fingerprints are on the gun. We got video of him jumping off the roof. Like, this is a slam dunk case.
Okay, but if you got video of him jumping off the roof, then why don't you have video of him taking the shot? The camera actually can see the entire roof, but half of the footage is cut off. Why? I don't even think the footage of him jumping off the roof, I don't even think that's him, for one. And for two, he wasn't holding a weapon. For three, we don't even know what date that's from. I don't even think that's from the same day. So it's like, there's like all these different things that are coming up, and they don't want you to ask any questions because, well, that's when you'll find out that it's all a bunch of BS. He's right. Not 100%. I agree with him.
Even if it is a slam dunk case that he took the shot, what about all the people who had prior knowledge? You know, all just the basic investigative questions.
Basically, there were people online who were announcing Charlie Kirk was going to be killed on a certain day, and they were all saying September 12th. They were saying he was going to die. They were talking about it in, months before it happened. Like, they knew this was going to happen. They even said the location in Utah. So that's what Joe Kent is referring to. And they were actually able to to check the date on the metadata to make sure, and it was all from way before Charlie had died, allegedly.
How did he get there? You map it out. Nothing. This isn't rocket science. I mean, this is anything that anyone with common sense would know to ask. But basically, once they caught him, once he turned himself in and his fingerprints were on the gun, it was basically pencils down. Utah has the rest of it. There's nothing else to see here. And, I'm over there thinking I'm in crazy town saying, like, no, we have all these different leads that we need to run down, just from my perspective. Now, the people who had prior knowledge, I believe most of them were American citizens. So that would be on the FBI to go run down. But again, not without saying anything specific, there was more work for us to do on the potential of a foreign nexus. Again, not saying there is one, but we had more work to do, and we were blocked from doing that.
I can't, my heart is pounding listening to this. I just would want people listening to this to assess two things. One, are you over your skis? Are you making claims you can't prove? No. Two, is there any conceivable motive, dark motive, that you would have for wanting to know more about this murder, to wanting to investigate it? And I don't think any rational person could construct a bad motive for wanting to know. It's your job.
Yeah.
It's the government's job. And so I think the onus is on people who are preventing the collection of information to describe why they're doing that. That's the question for them. Why wouldn't you want to know? Specifically, you may not know the answer, of the people who demonstrated prior knowledge of Charlie Kirk's murder online, and there were a number of them. Are you satisfied that all of them were interviewed by the FBI in person?
I have no idea. I don't know. I just think, considering they knew Charlie was going to be assassinated, and there was enough of them that it wasn't just some rando who maybe he tags every TPUSA post with that. There was enough of them that there's something there. I don't know what that something is.
Well, by definition.
But we haven't seen any arrests. So to me, there's more work to be done. And because that could have been posted from anywhere, that would be in the purview of the FBI or NCTC, or if they're overseas. And to me, I personally did not see any effort being taken to continue to run that down. Now, I'm sure they will say, hey, we're open to anything. We'll continue to investigate. But, we're coming up on several months now. Why hasn't this been done?
Are you bothered by it?
I'm very bothered by it. I'm very bothered by it. Like, I personally did not know Charlie well. But Charlie Kirk is a generational figure. I mean, he led a movement. He was speaking to millions of young Americans who came out, who voted for President Trump. And he was just a genuine great man, husband, father. I mean, how can you not like Charlie Kirk? But also the fact that he was murdered so publicly. And yes, there's been a lot of sympathy, and his movement has grown, et cetera. But actual curiosity about getting to justice, to figuring out what happened.
I mean, has his movement grown? I don't see any other TPUSA people on these college campuses talking to students. I don't even know what the hell they're doing no more. I know they did a halftime show, made a bunch of money. I know they made a bunch of money selling t-shirts and merch and commemorative memorabilia when Charlie died, but I don't know what they do anymore. I have no clue what TPUSA is even up to. So it seems like his movement actually died when he died. Now it's just the business and the money making part kicked in. but not as far as the movement, the America First movement, where we are speaking to liberals and trying to convert them over to a reasonable conservative perspective so that we can all be on similar footing coexisting in this country. I don't see that anymore. Yeah, people like me, we have these conversations online. We haven't been doing a lot of in-person stuff because you can reach more people via the internet. But Charlie was going into the belly of the beast. I wouldn't mind doing it. I can hold my own. I just, again, you have more reach on the internet. Yeah, it might show you have so many subscribers, but hundreds of thousands of people are literally watching your videos over time. So that's why I make this content. Yeah, I don't think TPUSA really is doing anything right now, to be honest.
That makes me furious that we're being blocked from that, and that we're not allowed to ask the question anymore. We're just not allowed to talk about it anymore. And I think that's absolute insanity. And what does that mean? What does that mean that there are people and there's entities out there that don't want us looking into this? And I'm sure they're preparing the response right now, and they're saying that's because we don't want to screw up the Robinson trial. Like, okay, if the Robinson trial is so slam dunk, then don't worry about it.
Yeah, it should be solid. Then why would you care?
Etc.
It shouldn't matter.
But there was people publicly posting they had prior knowledge of this, and I'm here telling you, as someone who's involved in the investigation, there was more stones for us to overturn. And every time we asked, we were blocked. And then they, leaked to New York Times. We had a blow up, and we had to throw them out of the room because they're crazy, etc. So it's incredibly frustrating that there's not more, especially considering how pivotal Charlie was to the MAGA movement and to President Trump, that there hasn't been a more concerted effort to find the truth and to find justice.
Do you think there will be?
I pray there is. I hope this helps. I know, you and I will probably take some flack for it.
I don't know why, and I doubt I'll be. Yeah, it's at a certain point. I've really tried not to say anything about it because I don't know the answers, but I want them to be found because I believe in justice and because I love Charlie. And but I think everything you have said, may be dismissed as crazy or evil. Tell me how. Right. With reference to the words you've just spoken, I don't see how someone could level a legitimate attack on you and won't stop them. You mentioned the breaches of the president's security that have been reported. One that was reported in ICANN.
Like I said, when it comes to this topic, there are so many gaping holes. And when I'm now being pragmatic about how I fill those spaces, it's more than it's way past trying to cover up who killed him or even cover up it's not about the death. It's about more than that. These are all questions that are coming up. Everyone's acting so weird. The reason they're acting weird, in my opinion, is because they're not acting like somebody just died. They're not behaving like somebody very important and close to them just died. That's what and people are creatures of habit. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, you can literally basically just do basic studies of people and see that there's something fundamentally wrong. And then you have somebody like Joe Kent coming out and making all these declarations, and we find out that he's in the West Wing. There's this, I don't know. I'm going to talk more about this. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'm going to clip the hell out of this episode because there are so many gems in here that I'm going to want to refer to back later. So me and my team, we're going to start doing the clips. I appreciate you guys for all tuning in. This is going to be a good story. I'm going to post this later on this evening around 7 o'clock. I'll see you guys again with another topic in about 20 minutes. And remember, it's America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.